In mid-November 1930, a Canadian fur trader by the name of Joe LaBelle found himself in the middle of a raging storm. His weary eyes scanned the rugged terrain for a place to rest, and it was then that he saw a familiar haven, an Inuit village nestled on the rocky slopes of the lake. LaBelle had visited the region many times before, and seeing the village brought him memories of warm hospitality and camaraderie between LaBelle and the peaceful villagers. But on this eerie night, a disconcerting silence enveloped the village. To LaBelle's astonishment, there was no sign of life to be found. The bustling settlement he had encountered only 2 weeks prior had transformed into a desolate ghost town. Once filled with laughter and activity, the village now stood empty. It was a dead silence where not even the animals were heard. Only the noise of the wind and the occasional slamming of wooden windows. LaBelle's heart raced with apprehension. As he scoured the village for answers, he found no trace of its inhabitants. The kayaks of the Inuit, normally afloat on the lake, remained untouched. The houses stood open just as before. In his quest for understanding, he entered each hut hoping for a clue, a sign of life, or an explanation for the village's inexplicable emptiness. What he discovered within the huts only deepened the mystery. Instead of signs of a departure, LaBelle found stockpiles of essential supplies, food, weapons, and furs left behind. It was as though the villagers had vanished into thin air, leaving their treasured belongings untouched. Inside one hut, he stumbled upon the remnants of a fish stew, burnt and abandoned on the fire. In another, a table set for a meal remained untouched, plates still bearing food. In another hut, he found a discarded coat on the floor, still with its needle and thread, as if the person sewing had been abruptly interrupted. There were no signs of struggle, no chaos that would suggest an attack. Everything was in perfect order, except for the people who were missing. The community of 2,000 individuals had seemingly vanished without a trace in the middle of a normal day. But there was another detail that LaBelle checked with profound astonishment. There were no tracks on the ground indicating that people had left the camp. LaBelle's fear deepened as he realized the magnitude of the situation. Braving the frigid night, he embarked on a journey to the nearest telegraph office, determined to share his chilling discovery. His message of the deserted village reached the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, sparking an unprecedented expedition. Upon arriving at the deserted village, the Canadian police found evidence that hinted at the possibility that a supernatural event had occurred. They discovered that the Inuits did not take their dog sleds with them. The once vibrant huskies, crucial to the Inuit way of life, lay lifeless, buried beneath layers of snow, starved in a manner that defied understanding. The Inuits could not possibly have traveled without one of their typical means of transport, sleds or kayaks. And they would never let their dogs die in such a slow and painful way, as they play an essential role in the survival of communities isolated by snow and ice. Still, they left, and the dogs were left to fend for themselves. They also encountered another enigma. The village's cemetery had suffered desecration, with earth removed and piled uniformly next to each grave. The ground was so frozen that it looked petrified and would have been impossible to excavate by hand. Considering that the desecration of the dead is one of the most serious taboos for the Inuit people, what is the explanation for the graves being disturbed? As if the physical anomalies weren't enough, the police officers themselves reported seeing pulsating lights on the horizon as they explored the vicinity of Lake Anjikuni. None of these lights looked natural or like anything they had ever seen before. Lights in the sky of northern Canada are not unusual. The northern lights are stunning natural phenomena that can be seen from even the farthest reaches of the country. But the lights this search and rescue personnel discovered were nothing like the natural beauty they were used to viewing. Unlike the northern lights, the lights they observed on the horizon were bluish and pulsing. Before reaching the lake, the rescue party stopped at the house of a local hunter, Armand Laurent, who disclosed unsettling occurrences of his own. Laurent and his 2 children said they had witnessed intensely luminous lights in the night sky, accompanied by the presence of cylinder-shaped objects traveling slowly and silently over Lake Anjikuni. Disturbed by these bizarre spectacles, Laurent and his children remained confined to their home, clutching their hunting rifles. In their search for answers, authorities proposed the theory of a seasonal migration in an attempt to rationalize the villagers' disappearance. But without ever tracing such an immigration route, or at least explaining why there were no recent traces, rendered this explanation implausible. Various ufologists speculated in the late 20th century that the residents of this village may have been the unwitting victims of one of history's largest extraterrestrial abductions. Despite the fact that the evidence supporting this idea is anecdotal at best, the assumption is both intriguing and terrifying. Decades have passed, and yet the enigma surrounding Anjikuni's disappearance remains unsolved. What were the strange lights in the sky? Where did the people go? Why were the dogs left to starve? And most chillingly of all, who had been in the empty graves?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.